James Adair, Argument 8, Part 4. If any of the warriors are confined at home by sickness or wounds, and are either deemed incapable or unfit to come to the annual expiation, they are allowed one of the old consecrated conch shells full of their sanctifying bitter casina by their magi. The traders hear them often dispute for it, as their proper due, by ancient custom, and they often repeat their old religious ceremonies to one another, especially that part which they imagine most affects their present welfare. The aged are sent to instruct the young ones in these particulars. The above allowance seems to be derived from the divine precept of mercy in allowing a second Passover in favor of those who could not go or were not admitted to the first, and the latter custom to be in obedience to the divine law, which their supposed progenitors were to write on the posts of the doors, to wear as frontlets before their eyes, and teach to their children. Though the Indians do not use salt in their first fruit oblation till the fourth day, it is not to be doubted but they formerly did. They reckon they cannot observe the annual expiation of sins without bear's oil, both to mix with that yearly offering and to eat with the new sanctified fruits, and some years they have a great deal of trouble in killing a sufficient quantity of bears for the use of this religious solemnity and their other sacred rites for the approaching year, for at such seasons they are hard to be found, and quite lean. The traders commonly supply themselves with plenty of this oil from winter to winter, but the Indians are so prepossessed with the notion of the white people being all impure and accursed, that they deem their oil as polluting on those sacred occasions, as Josephus tells us the Jews reckoned that of the Greeks. An Indian warrior will not light his pipe at a white man's fire if he suspects any unsanctified food has been dressed at it in the new year. And in the time of the new ripened fruits, their religious men carry a flint, punk, and steel when they visit us, for fear of polluting themselves by lighting their pipes at our supposed locupros, accursed fire, and spoiling the power of their holy things. The polluted would, if known, be infallibly anathematized and expelled from the temple, with the women who are suspected of gratifying their vicious taste. During the 8 days festival, they are forbidden even to touch the skin of a female child, if they are detected either in cohabiting with, or laying their hand on any of their own wives. In that sacred interval, they are stripped naked, and the offender has universally deemed so atrocious a criminal that he lives afterwards a miserable life. Some have shot themselves dead, rather than stand the shame, and the long years' continual reproaches cast upon them, for every mischance that befalls any of their people, or the ensuing harvest, a necessary effect of the divine anger, they say, for such a crying sin of pollution. An instance of this kind I heard happen some years ago in Tallace, a town of the Muskogee, 7 miles above the Alabama garrison. When we consider how sparingly they eat in their usual way of living, it is surprising to see what a vast quantity of food they consume on their festival days. It would equally surprise a stranger to see how exceedingly they vary their dishes, their dainties consisting only of dried flesh, fish, oil, corn, beans, peas, pompions, and wild fruit. During this rejoicing time, the warriors are dressed in their wild martial array, with their heads covered with white down. They carry feathers of the same color either in their hands, or fastened to white scraped canes, as emblems of purity and scepters of power, while they are dancing in 3 circles, and singing their religious praises around the sacred arbor, in which stands the holy fire. Their music consists of 2 claypot drums covered on the top with thin wet deer skins, drawn very tight, on which each of the noisy musicians beats with a stick, accompanying the noise with their voices. At the same time, the dancers prance it away, with wild and quick sliding steps, and variegated postures of body, to keep time with the drums, and the rattling calabash is shaped by some of their religious heroes, each of them singing their old religious songs, and striking notes in timpano et coro. Such is the graceful dancing, as well as the vocal and instrumental music of the Red Hebrews on religious and martial occasions, which they must have derived from early antiquity. Toward the conclusion of the great festival, they paint and dress themselves anew, and give themselves the most terrible appearance they possibly can. They take up their war instruments, and fight a mock battle in a very exact manner, after which, the women are called to join in a grand dance, and if they disobey the invitation they are fined. But as they are extremely fond of such religious exercise, and deem it productive of temporal good, all soon appear in their finest apparel, as before suggested, decorated with silver ear bobs, or pendants to their ears, several rounds of white beads about their necks, rings upon their fingers, large wire or broad plates of silver on their wrists, their heads shining with oil, and torre pine shells containing pebbles, fastened to deer skins, tied to the outside of their legs. Thus adorned, they join the men in 3 circles, and dance a considerable while around the sacred fire, and then they separate. At the conclusion of this long and solemn festival, the Archimagus orders one of the religious men to proclaim to all the people that their sacred annual solemnity is now ended, and every kind of evil averted from the beloved people, according to the old straight beloved speech. They must therefore paint themselves, and come along with them according to ancient custom. As they know the stated time, the joyful sound presently reaches their longing ears. Immediately they fly about to grapple up a kind of chalky clay, to paint themselves white. By their religious emulation, they soon appear covered with that emblem of purity, and join at the outside of the holy ground, with all who had sanctified themselves within it, who are likewise painted, some with streaks, and others all over, as white as the clay can make them. Recusants would undergo a heavy penalty. They go along in a very orderly solemn procession, to purify themselves in running water. The Archimagus heads the holy train, his waiter next, the beloved men according to their seniority, and the warriors by their reputed merit. The women follow them in the same orderly manner, with all the children that can walk, behind them, ranged commonly according to their height, the very little ones they carry in their arms. Those, who are known to have eaten of the unsanctified fruits, bring up the rear. In this manner the procession moves along, singing Alleluia to Wai-O-Hi-Wa, till they get to the water, which is generally contiguous when the Archimagus jumps into it, and all the holy train follows him, in the same order they observed from the temple. Having purified themselves, or washed away their sins, they come out with joyful hearts, believing themselves out of the reach of temporal evil for their past vicious conduct, and they return in the same religious cheerful manner, into the middle of the holy ground, where having made a few circles, singing and dancing around the altar, they thus finish their annual great festival, and depart in joy and peace. Ancient writers inform us that while the Scythians or Tartars were heathens, their priests in the time of their sacrifices took some blood, and mixing it with milk, horse dung, and earth, got on a tree, and having exhorted the people, they sprinkled them with it, in order to purify them, and defend them from every kind of evil. The heathens also excluded some from religious communion. The Egyptians excommunicated those who ate of animals that bore wool, or cut the throat of a goat, XXV. And in ancient times, they, and the Phoenicians, Greeks, adored the serpent, and expelled those who killed it. The East Indians likewise drive those from the supposed benefit of their altars, who eat of a cow, and drink wine, or that eat with foreigners, or an inferior caste. Though the heathen world offered sacrifice, had ablutions, and several other sorts of purifications, and frequently by fire, yet at the best, their religious observances differed widely from the divine institutions, whereas the American Aborigines observed strict purity in the most essential parts of the divine law. The former concealed their various worship from the light of the sun, some seeking thick groves, others descending into the deep valleys, others crawling to get into caverns, and under their favorite rocks. But we find the latter, in their state houses and temples, following the Jerusalem copy in a surprising manner. Those of them who yet retain a supposed most holy place, contrary to the usage of the old heathen world, have it standing at the west end of the holy quadrangular ground, and they always appoint those of the meanest rank to sit on the seats of the eastern square, so that their backs are to the east and faces to the west. The red square looks north, and the second men's cabin, as the traders term the other square, of course, looks south, which is a strong imitation of Solomon's temple that was modeled according to the divine plan of the Israelitish camp in the wilderness. We find them also sanctifying themselves, according to the emblematical laws of purity, offering their annual sacrifice in the center of their quadrangular temples, under the meridian light of the sun. Their magi are devoted to, and bear the name of the Great Holy One, their supposed prophets likewise that of the divine fire, and each of them bear the emblems of purity and holiness, while in their religious duties, they sing Alleluia, Wai-O-Hi-Wa, both day and night. Thus different are the various gods, temples, prophets, and priests of all the idolatrous nations of antiquity, from the savage Americans, which shows with convincing clearness, especially by recollecting the former arguments, that the American Aborigines were never idolaters, nor violated the second commandment in worshiping the incomprehensible, omnipresent, divine essence, after the manner described by the popish historians of Peru and Mexico, but that the greatest part of their civil and religious system is a strong old picture of the Israelitish, much less defaced than might be reasonably expected from the circumstances of time and place.
If you've been to this channel more than once, please subscribe, as it truly does help the channel. Leave a comment, for the Bang looks forward to reading them and replying to them. Also, don't forget to like and share this content with like-minded individuals such as yourself. There's plenty more where this came from. Until next time, this Bang content will end in 3, 2, 1. If you've been to this channel more than once, please subscribe, as it truly does help the channel. Leave a comment, for the Bang looks forward to reading them and replying to them. Also, don't forget to like and share this content with like-minded individuals such as yourself. There's plenty more where this came from. Until next time, this Bang content will end in 3, 2, 1.